that we have upcoming the League of Women Voters on Thursday, the 16th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. at 6 p.m. and it'll be carried live on KPTZ. And you guys are having a.
Could I have your attention, please?
May I have your attention, please?
May I have your attention, please?
And thank you for your attention. I'm Taylor Clark, host of This Week of Attention Please. And this week we are talking to the two candidates for Hospital Commissioner Position 1. We're talking to Matt Reddy. Hi, Matt.
Hi.
Is it Position 2?
Position 3.
Position 3.
Yes.
Did I say Position 1?
Yeah.
I was thinking of the City Council candidates. Position 3, Matt Reddy and Stu Kerber?
Kerber, correct.
Kerber.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you both for joining us here today.
Thank you.
And I want to just start out by saying we talked about this a minute ago, that we have upcoming the League of Women Voters on Thursday, the 16th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. at 6 p.m. and it'll be carried live on KPTZ. And you guys are having an official League of Women Voters debate, which is handled much more formally than Attention Please at your own local volunteer community radio station. So I'm not really trying to have a debate here today so much as I think it's important just to have a conversation with you guys as candidates to talk about, healthcare in general, to talk about rural hospitals, to talk about why you ran, what's important to you, and maybe a little bit about what you want to do. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start off. Stu, I know you have a great interest in finance. Your spouse was the CFO for the hospital. Correct. And the chief administrative officer. And I get it. You said you had what'd you call it? Dinner time conversations that involve hospital finance. And I also have a partner that's involved in public life, and you can learn a lot just by paying attention to what they're thinking about and doing. Is it hospital finance that's sort of your main interest in this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in ensuring that the hospital remains financially sound. That's the main reason that I got involved.
Yeah.
And why I'm excited about running. I think that we have a very challenging landscape ahead of us, as both as a hospital district as well as a larger healthcare system in the country. And I think that
for the country as a whole.
Yeah, for the country as a whole. But my wife's experience aside, my background is also in finance. And 8 years, been a partner of a small financial services firm that works primarily with, thank you all, and I appreciate for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stu Kerber, and I'm really excited about running for hospital commissioner. I'm a Pacific Northwest native, and I moved to Fort Ludlow with my wife 9 years ago, and we love it there. More intentionally, we've decided to raise 2 young boys here, and we have a 6- and 3-year-old that I just adore. As a father, I'm deeply invested in the future of our community, and I've also been looking for a way to get more involved in our community, give back, be of service, and put what I believe is a pretty unique skill set to use. My professional background is in finance and organizational problem solving. I've worked a lot in commercial banking, and for the last 8 years been a partner of a small financial services firm that works primarily with family farms in Eastern Washington and helping them to navigate challenges around generational change and financial recovery. The agricultural market in Washington looks very similar to the healthcare landscape that we're experiencing. And as such, I believe that I'm uniquely positioned to complement the board with my experience. I was introduced to the hospital quite some time ago, fortunately through my wife, Hillary Whittington. She served as the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Administrative Officer for 9 years for Jefferson Healthcare, and she's been gone now for about 5, moved on in her career. But what that's done is provide over a decade of dinner room conversations about not just Jefferson Healthcare, but healthcare in general, and our national healthcare policy, and what the healthcare landscape looks like. The big reason that I got involved in the race and want to serve on the board is because I truly believe that all of the majority of challenges that our hospital district are going to face are going to be financial in nature. And I think we're starting to see that already. We're seeing decreases in reimbursement, increased regulation, and we're seeing increased expenses for hospitals. And it creates a really different environment than what we've operated in over the last 10 years. I believe that Jefferson Healthcare has done a really good job being a financial steward and protecting them, having a strong financial position, but yet also growing services and access for our community in ways that our community needs. With all of that said, I also believe that an organization can only risk as much as its core financial position allows it. And to explain how that relates with Jefferson Healthcare and our public hospital district, the hospital has done a really good job of remaining financially sound. And what that's allowed it to do is to bring on more risk. And that risk really comes through in creativity, which drives access for our community. So if we think about it, by having a strong financial position, the hospital's been able to do some amazing things like the 55,000 square foot expansion, or replacement building and expansion, getting into a retail pharmacy and opening that up, the Fort Ludlow clinic that's been opened in the last 5-6 years, or even getting into dental-based care in essentially a hospital clinic setting, which is extremely problematic for hospitals from a repayment standpoint, but yet they've been able to do it and been a leader in the state in providing that. So all of those things induce risk to the business, but yet the business has been able to induce that risk because they've been financially strong, and it drives access for our community. My objectives, if elected, are pretty straightforward. First off, as I've been talking, I want to make sure that the hospital remains financially sound, secular, and independent. And I believe that those are all things that resonate with our community. I also, though, want to continue to remove barriers to access and solve barriers to access for our population, but specifically for our younger families and for our aging adults. Our younger families provide the vibrancy for our community, and they're the ones that are going to step into our shoes as leaders of the community in the future. But also, we need to ensure that our aging adults have the ability to age in place with grace and enjoy the benefits of the community that they've helped to build. I'm also really focused on ensuring that Jefferson Healthcare remains both an excellent place to work, but also the best place to practice medicine in the region. And we're going to need that because we need the ability to attract talent to the hospital and to grow as we are. But we also need to make sure that we're retaining our staff and developing the skills of our staff and promoting internally whenever we're able to. Because at the end of the day, our staff is really our most valuable resource at Jefferson Healthcare, and without them, access to care means nothing. I would say lastly, I am focused on increasing the transparency and the professionalism of the board. I think that the board has a wide variety of skill sets that I compliment, but I would say that a board shouldn't have consensus. That's not a sign of a healthy board. Disagreement is a sign of a healthy board. But we need to make sure that we resolve those disagreements in a professional manner, and we don't do so in a way that jeopardizes or disparages the staff, the hospital, or the reputation of the hospital within our public. I believe that our public institutions work better when they're working together. I also believe that it's the role of a commissioner who's publicly elected to be the conduit between what the board and the hospital is doing and what the public's goals are and the public's input. That is the role of being a publicly elected official in a job like this. To that point, I've spent a lot of time this summer connecting with other institutions, or public institutions in our community that have relationships with the hospital. So that includes meeting with city and county government, meeting with law enforcement and fire chiefs, meeting with superintendents, meeting with other executive directors. And my goal in doing so has really been two things. One, asking them what is the relationship with the hospital from their perspective, so I can learn that. But also two, asking them where are there opportunities to remove friction or to collaborate. And what I found is, one, everybody has pretty good relationships in our community, and I think that's something that we kind of come to expect, and that's not a surprise. But the other thing that I found is that there's all these really neat ideas that are sitting on the sideline, and what they really need is they need an advocate or a champion to bring them forward. Are all of them going to work? No, that's just not the reality of it. But some of them probably will. And the ones that don't are going to drive really fun and interesting conversations that ultimately are going to make access for our community. At the end of the day, I believe that I understand what is at stake here, which is our ability to preserve our way of life that we enjoy, and to live in this remote, beautiful, yet rural part of the state. I believe that healthcare is something that everybody should have access to, regardless of age or circumstance. And I'm running to ensure that the hospital remains financially sound so that generations to come can continue to build their lives here. Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Okay, Matt.
You
can sit or stand, whatever you'd like to do.
I'm giving my 10-minute intro now.
Yeah, or less. Or less.
All right, well, thank you all for being here. I've written out my statement because I want to be really specific. 12 years ago, I ran for hospital commissioner as an activist for healthcare. And let me just start a timer to make sure I don't go over.
He takes it.
Okay. All right.
That's why I'm here.
I ran for hospital commissioner as an activist for healthcare access for all. Since then, I pushed the board to improve the quality of its deliberation, listen to patients and employees, champion universal healthcare, and keep our community health at its center. Along the way, I've been at the heart of two major controversies, both rooted in transparency and the public's right to know. Soon after taking office in 2014, I began recording our board meetings so that we could learn from every word. But the CEO and the commissioners then in office fiercely opposed it. It took 9 years, the arrival of 2 new commissioners, Culp and McComas, and a legal opinion that the CEO had withheld from the board for 5 years to confirm what I had argued all along, that commissioners and citizens have the absolute right to record our public meetings without any interference. Because we live in a country where the people have a right to know and our elected leaders and what our elected leaders are talking about. Today, the board records all on-site meetings, but it still refuses to record our off-site meetings, which often go 6 hours or more. So I record those myself at my own expense. The long fight over something as basic as recording meetings, preserving an accurate, truthful record of our board deliberations, exposed a deep hostility to transparency, and set the stage for the next crisis, the Peninsula Health Alliance, which I'm sure some of you have heard about. On February 5th of this year, the Jefferson Healthcare Board went into executive session, citing the real estate exemption of the Open Public Meetings Act. But instead of real estate, we were shown a plan to form a private nonprofit corporation, the Peninsula Health Alliance, with CEO Mike Glenn as administrator and a 12-member super board with 7 seats for OMC and 5 seats for Jefferson, giving Clown County instant majority control. When I asked the CEO if he was seeking board approval, the CEO said yes. And one by one, the other commissioners showed their support. It was, unfortunately, an illegally held deliberation and an illegal straw poll taken outside of public view. At a second executive session, the CEO described a strategy of eventually releasing this proposal to the public, but only after Jefferson and OMC had agreed in principle to proceeding with it. He called this strategy setting up a binding, non-binding agreement. And the hospital attorney present at that meeting gave advice on how to accomplish this neat trick. In the weeks that followed, I warned my colleagues the session and the process was unlawful and unlawfully hidden from the public. My own attorney and legal research indicated we were getting seriously flawed legal guidance from the hospital attorney, who said it was okay to hide these talks under the guise of real estate discussions. They dismissed my concerns and refused to seek a simple second legal opinion. At the same time, the CEO and other board members publicly denied the proposal existed and insisted that the February 5th session was indeed only about real estate, which was blatantly false. I would not be complicit in deceiving the public over such a sweeping proposal. So, after careful and stressful, painstaking deliberation, I filed a criminal complaint with the sheriff, and I reported the violations to the state auditor, and I reported the advising attorney to the Washington State Bar Association. At the March 26th meeting, I told the public what was happening, and the chair cut off my microphone twice, once during public comment. Now, can you imagine our city mayor cutting off the microphone of a city council member during their allotted time to speak as a representative of the people? If our meetings were not recorded, then you may have never heard about this, and this abuse of power may have just succeeded in keeping this whole process secret. But thankfully, the Port Townsend leader listened to our meeting recordings, sometimes. They investigated this and they broke the story. The sheriff later concluded that the board had likely violated the OPMA, the State's Open Public Meetings Act. And I want to sincerely thank the Port Townsend leader and Sheriff Andy Pernsteiner and Detective Derek Allen for their thorough and professional investigation into this matter. That is how the press and other institutions are supposed to work to support the integrity of one another. Now, it was only after the press exposed the proposal did the CEO and other commissioners admit it existed, claiming secrecy was required by a non-disclosure agreement. But a non-disclosure agreement is a private corporate tool. It's not a shield for public officials. It cannot override a public hospital district's duty of transparency. It is the law that defines the public's right to know. Two CEOs cannot just get together, sign a piece of paper, and suddenly public records are no longer public records, which is what our CEO and the board seem to be claiming. This entire situation continues to need a thorough, impartial analysis by the institution of Jefferson Healthcare internally so that the board and CEO can learn from it. What went wrong, why, and how can we avoid a mess like this in the future? But the board refuses to hire an independent attorney, instead letting the CEO investigate with lawyers he employs and pays with our tax dollars. But even those lawyers, however biased, they could not dispute what multiple outside attorneys have found, that the February 5th session indeed broke the law. It was not about real estate at all. The CEO and board now claim that they have a new legal memo by one of the new CEO-controlled and employed lawyers that drafts and answers every question that I'm raising about this non-disclosure agreement. But I have that memo, I read it, that claim is not true, and the board and CEO refuse to just release the memo to the public so you can read for yourselves and see what's going on. Now, could an alliance such as the Peninsula Health Alliance be a good idea? Absolutely. But as this one was crafted, it was dangerous. It was a step towards corporate secrecy replacing democratic oversight. In such a structure, a single vote of that board could have taken decisions out of public view. Ideas this powerful and significant must face public scrutiny from the start. And really, with a little forethought, we could have easily found a path to do that with this proposal. Jefferson Healthcare is one of the most important institutions in our county. It provides incredibly high-quality patient care. And the concerns I've raised are not about our doctors, nurses, or staff. They're about the governance at the top. Public hospital commissioners must lead with integrity, understanding that a public institution is not a private corporation. They must hold their CEOs accountable, evaluate them, the CEO, in meaningful ways, such as using the best practice of a 360 evaluation. And they must rely on independent counsel to resolve controversies such as this quickly, openly, and fairly. Transparency is not a burden to escape with legal maneuvers or backroom deals. It is the foundation of democracy. Transparency is the sunlight that protects us all from the abuse of power. I stand by my record, and if re-elected, I will continue to serve with honesty, integrity, and thoughtfulness as your hospital commissioner. Looking forward, my priority is clear: keep our hospital locally controlled, financially stable, and always focused on the health of our community. And if you would like to learn more or actually listen to some of these board meetings that I've been describing, there's recordings on my website, readyforhealthcare.org. So I would just say, remember, when we shine the light into our public institutions, we don't weaken them. We make them worthy of the trust they hold. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do is just take, we'll try to take 5 minutes here, and they can ask at least one question from each other, okay? So, Stu, would you like to ask a question of Matt?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I guess, Matt, what I ask is how do you address that your basis of fact is very different, I think, than what the other board members and the executive team have come out. They've at the last couple of board meetings, they've discussed it. They've discussed it in theater, and around some of the items like the weighting of, or not the weighting, the structure of the board and giving away our governance essentially, because I guess I think that our executive team and our boards competent enough that they wouldn't structure something that would give away our control.
Can I interject for just one moment? Deborah, can you hear back there? People need to speak up a little more.
I can
Little
hear you
more?
pretty well.
Okay.
Pretty well. Okay, so, no, that's fine. I think she heard you pretty well, but just a reminder
Okay, sorry.
to
Yep.
speak up, and maybe even stand up when you're speaking, so
Well,
that people can read your lips.
And also, if you want to sit up here, you can sit here or over here if you'd like to.
Okay,
I can move.
okay. Thank you. All right.
Okay. Sorry about that. Stu.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so if you read the proposal that's been published, it says the board would be a super board. It would have 7 seats for OMC and 5 for Jefferson. And it says that board would select an administrator for the organization, and that administrator would run it. So it seems that that's what the proposal says. It says 7 for them, 5. It doesn't actually specify any decision-making process beyond that. All right, do you have an understanding?
Well, I guess.
Have you read the book?
Yeah, no, I've read the whole proposal. I guess I mean, my understanding is it was a document that was provided to OMC to outline the structure, but it's not, it was part of a presentation, and it wasn't something that was fully developed yet. And so I guess I struggle because it seems like the insinuation is that there's, whether it's malfeasance or incompetence, I have a higher expectation of our board. And I think it's disingenuous to pull that piece out when the executive team has addressed that specifically and the other boards addressed that specifically, and yet it continues to be a point that continues. And I guess I'm struggling to understand how you rectify that piece.
Yeah, I was just going by what the proposal I was given. That's what it says, 7 seats for OMC and 5 for, I agree it seems a bad idea. Like, I don't think, I mean, if we'd had a public discussion, I think one of the first things we would have said was, why does this say 7 seats for OMC, 5 for us? That looks like it's giving OMC a majority. And the thing that they've said is there's been other discussions they had behind the scenes that they say corrected it. They've said there was agreement to make it a supermajority for decision making, but I'm not even clear what that would have meant. Would that, how many votes? I don't know what the decision making structure is that they said they agreed behind the scenes. So yeah, I'm just going by what the proposal I was given. It says 7 and 5, which is, yeah, it looks absurd to anyone that looks at it. Why would we make it unbalanced like that? But
yeah, I guess I think that there's a context that's been communicated, and it's kind of like pulling a PowerPoint presentation, reading a PowerPoint presentation without having a presentation. And so I'm trying to understand why that continues to be a talking point when it seems fairly resolved that the document was obviously premature for public consumption and it wasn't prepared in that manner, and that that it was part of a larger delivery of the proposal to OMC. And I don't want to get into the specifics of litigating it, but it seems to be a lot of items like this that there's a direct conflict with what the hospital has said and what the existing board has said publicly and what you're claiming. And so I'm trying to understand how those are rectified, if that makes sense.
Okay, can we go to the next one? Would you
yes,
like to
It's
ask?
my turn to ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, well, we kind of talked about one of the questions.
Okay.
So, okay, when there's a serious disagreement on the board about the legality of the CEO's actions, should the board hire an independent attorney to advise, or should it simply rely on lawyers that are hired and employed by the CEO?
I guess it would depend on the circumstance. I don't have any problem with having an outside attorney. I also, though, would, I guess, trust that any attorney that the hospital has retained is not going to risk their professional reputation and livelihood for what would be, in the scheme of things, a rather minor engagement from their perspective. So it seems like the hospital has done a job of hiring attorneys that are competent. I'm not opposed to engaging an outside attorney if there's cause for it.
Okay, all right. Now we'll take questions from Rotary members first. Who wants to be first with a question? Rick.
To both of you, do either one of you want to fire the CEO of Jefferson Healthcare?
I can go first. No, I mean, I don't, at this point in time, I don't have any reason I see to fire the CEO. I believe, I mean, that is a core function of the job of a commissioner is governance, and it's to hire and fire their one employee, which is the CEO, and manage them. As long as the Board of Commissioners doesn't get involved in operations, they stay at governance, they set the policy and the direction of the organization, and they delegate the operation to the CEO. So as long as the CEO is is operating the hospital district in alignment with what the board has laid out for direction, the strategic plan and governance. No, I don't. If that changes, or if there's an issue that's of concern, then yeah, that's absolutely a conversation that I think is warranted in having.
And no, I just want the board to be professional and thorough in how it evaluates the CEO and how it deals with things like this. When you have a problem, like a crisis, a huge controversy like this, you need to do a really an objective, impartial, internal review. The public doesn't need to be involved. You need to see what happened, why it happened, and how can you prevent it from ever happening again. And I mean, I'm disappointed that the commissioners and the CEO haven't done that. But you know, I will continue to push for, I think, how we should proceed, how we should try to resolve things.
Next question. Yes, sir, Paul.
As a Port Townsend resident, why should the population of Port Townsend support this combination of the two hospitals when it basically cedes control to the other one, despite this mirage of a supermajority needing to do something? Could you help me as to why I should be enthusiastic to allow this to occur?
Okay, so,
Yeah, sure.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about the Peninsula Health Alliance I was describing, it is no longer on the table. It's apparently not being considered anymore. So that's one thing to be clear about.
Thank you.
And so, and I didn't think it was a good idea, so I'm not going to give you any reasons why we should have pursued it. I wasn't clear on why it was a good idea. So I guess, is that enough of an answer for, anything that's good?
Yeah, so just to add on, I would say that a couple of things. One, from my understanding of it, it did not cede control. It was a alliance that kept the hospitals independent, with their own independent hospital districts and their own independent boards and decision-making. The assets could be worked collaboratively. There could have been opportunities for sharing and expense savings. I think the details of that and the benefits are unfortunately largely lost through the result of how the process played out. What I would say, though, is as a Port Townsend resident, we are deeply vested in the interest of OMC's health. 25% of our current emergency department volume is coming from Clallam County. So the counties are really a dotted line, despite taxing districts. And we have a lot of patients that go from here over to swim in for treatment. So it's something that we need to be concerned about. I don't believe that it was a fiscal alliance. It was an opportunity to provide expertise and knowledge transfer. And I would say that Jefferson Healthcare is really good at running a critical access hospital. We're one of the leading critical access hospitals in the state. When 70% of all hospitals in Washington are losing money, we've been able to maintain a 2.2% average operating margin over the last 5-6 years. So, whether it plays out, what the exact benefits are, I don't know, but we should be concerned with OMC and we should be deeply vested in their health as well, because at the end of the day, this peninsula is all one just big area.
Could I make a clarifying comment?
Yeah.
What I asked was, why was the structure fundamentally ceding control?
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
You had 7 and 5. I've done hundreds of millions of dollars of mergers and combinations of organizations. In not one of those did the leading organization ever cede control to the one who needed more help. Yet that's how you've structured this.
Well, I think that's I think that's only structured from the board count. So what it was the start from the way I understood it was 5 boards. We have a 5-member publicly elected board. They have a 7-member publicly elected board. But that there was going to be a weighting to the voting to ensure that everything was essentially equal. There's, with any board structure, you can weight or you can structure board voting to ensure that everything stays equal. That's my understanding. I wasn't part of the conversations. I haven't been involved in the process. But I do have the faith that our executive
Thank
team.
you. I didn't appreciate we were dealing with Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
7 votes, didn't count any more.
Can
than
we take a
5.
question in some other area? Of healthcare, Pat?
This is a question for both of you. What do you see is the role of consensus in board deliberations?
So, yeah, I mean, I think a healthy board has a diversity of views, and it's okay to have disagreements and different opinions on votes. But I think it is incredibly healthy to work towards consensus, to try to find solutions that all the board members feel good about. I think that's the best way to move forward. I'm a big believer in consensus building. But it may not be practical at all times, so you may have votes that there are dissenting opinions.
Yeah, I would just say, I think that dissent is a sign of a healthy board. Obviously, we all want to move forward and step together, but we all have different world experience and professional experience and view the world differently. I would say I'm less concerned about consensus. I'm more concerned about how we resolve differences and to ensure that we're doing so in a professional manner that supports the hospital and the sole employee being the CEO.
Okay, another Rotary member, Scott, did you have a question?
It was asked by Bill.
Okay. Mr. President, any other Rotary questions? Yes.
I guess I've heard a lot today about what the hospital district has done for the community in terms of providing services. What do you see going forward? I mean, I'm wondering that maybe there's a time for a little breath and pause in endeavors, but that's never the case for a public entity. There's always something. What do you see going forward in the next 3 to 5 years with the hospital district, the needs or the desires?
Yeah, so I think that as we look forward, I mean, we've got some simple things on the landscape, not simple, but well-identified things on the landscape, like the expansion with the Imaging and Servicing Center in Port Ludlow. That'll be built out of the old Kitsap Bank building. The mobile dental clinic is going to be scaled up and rolling more. And I think the hospital wants to continue to meet needs of the community. They're also continuing to staff the new hospital building and bringing more additional services. Other areas that I think the hospital can look, I know that rehab has been one that's come up a lot as I've been talking to the community. It's a challenging area for the hospital, but it might behoove the hospital to at least look at what are the barriers that we're not, if we have that much demand, why are we not having private practitioners solving that in our community? And is that the hospital's role or somebody else's? I'd say largely we're going to be challenged in what the financial landscape looks like, and we're going to have to consider priority setting if our financial landscape gets more challenged, which I believe it will be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing in the immediate future is the impact of the massive tax bill that is going to cut, that is going to severely cut healthcare funding. So we're going to have to look at that for the next year when the cuts start to take place and see how that impacts our bottom line. So that's the first stressor. We are continuously, it's our job to assess the healthcare needs of the community and see if we need to expand services or change them in any way. And there's already talk about another, just the beginnings of talks about another construction project. So that is also something that's on the horizon.
Could I just follow up? So speaking of funding, is there any projection at this point about how that funding change will affect Jefferson Healthcare?
The estimate that the CEO gave was that at a minimum about $250,000 a year, less funding, but potentially an increase of like $1 to $2 million a year of charity care that we'd have to do. And also just massive stress on our Medicaid community having to jump through many more bureaucratic hoops to stay on Medicare. And so we'll be spending money to try to help our community know about that and stay on top of it.
Yeah, I'd say that's the big piece is going to be access and coverage. The projection's about 3,000 people in our community losing Medicaid. The hospital is still going to need to care for those patients, which means that the expense is still there, but the revenue is not. Our charity care, we have one of the best charity care programs in the state, which I think is extremely commendable, and it provides access for our community. Last year, we spent $9.2 million on it. On an annualized basis, based on August, we're going to be at $12.5 million this year, which is a quite substantial growth, and that's prior to the impact. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be, I think, charity care and in bad debt forgiveness is going to be an issue that the board is going to have to figure out how to address if funding becomes tight, because that is a critical piece of how we drive access for our community.
Okay. Case, you have a question?
Yeah, since currently property taxes from people in Jefferson County provide about $500,000 per year of revenue, which is less than 1 day's operation of the hospital district, would you be in favor of considering raising the levy lid in order to provide an additional perhaps $3 million to help cover some of the required charity costs? Currently, I pay per year for my property taxes $48 a year in order to have access to a full-service 24/7 emergency room.
Yeah, so I would say I generally am not in favor of raising taxes. All of that being said, so our tax revenue last year was $530,000. We're the second lowest taxing district, public hospital district in the state of Washington, and well below all of our peers. I'm not in favor of raising taxes for construction projects and things like that. I see charity care as being one of the areas where if that's the only way that we can fill that gap to continue access to our community, then that's probably a conversation that's worth having.
Yeah, well, I mean, we often say we only get $500,000 a year of tax money, but like 70% of our patients are Medicare and Medicaid, which is all tax funded. So, you know, I mean, I'm open if the board wanted to discuss changing the tax basis. I would be open to discuss that. But I think the big picture is that our entire healthcare system is an inefficient bureaucratic mess, and that's why I favor, you know, big reform such as single payer healthcare, so that we can streamline as a nation our healthcare costs and make it make a little bit more sense. And I'd also be really open to some sort of regional single payer healthcare solution if we could get it together and accomplish that. But those kind of reforms and goals seem a far way off with the way our current legislators work together.
Thank you. Other questions from other folks? Yes, sir.
Well, I keep on rephrasing this question in my head. I initially came in wondering about coziness with the CEO and what it means when a candidate for the board's wife was the chief financial officer. So that was a concern of mine. But as I've sat here, I keep on hearing we. And I say specifically to you, Stu, you keep on talking about we as though you're part of the hospital and you're already on the board. And that makes me really uncomfortable in terms of some kind of critical distance. Also, there seems to be an acceptance that there's this fact that somehow Matt didn't know, and I'm saying this to both of you, that the 7 and 5 wasn't really what people conceived. So therefore, Matt was obviously left out of the discussion. That's the only way I can make sense of this. So then the question is, was Matt left out of the discussion because he was a whistleblower? And if so, are we kind of experiencing a community shunning? So all of these questions are going on in my head, and I would appreciate if both of you would address them.
Yeah. It sounds like you have two questions.
Well, yes.
One we've already talked about, which is the supermajority issue.
Well, except I don't feel satisfied by the answer, obviously, so I'm asking it again.
A lot of people don't.
It's not because of a lack of intelligence, it's because I don't hear an answer that's satisfying. What I hear is an answer that is coming from people who are on the board, who are of course going to defend their position.
So could I interject for 1 second, Mike?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a fair question for Stu, because he's not on the board and he doesn't know what happened. I think your question is a fair question for those of us who are currently on the board, but that's really not what this forum is for. This forum is for you to try to make a decision as to which one would be the better candidate. So I think your first question is appropriate. Your second question is one that you should take to the current board so that you can hear from Bruce McComas, Mari Bressler, myself, and Jill Bueller. Because we're the ones who have the disagreement with Matt in terms of what happened and how it happened. And I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards about that to help you facilitate an answer to your question. But I think for the purposes of this forum, your first question is appropriate, but not the second.
Can we get to the first question?
Well, excuse me, but it seems to be totally outrageous that a member of the hospital board would now tell me what is appropriate and not appropriate to ask the candidates.
I understand.
That's ridiculous.
I understand.
That is patently
we
ridiculous.
understand what you're asking and what you're saying. Can we just take the first question?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah.
Coziness.
Yeah. No. So
coziness with the board.
Yeah. No. I think that's a fair question, and it's a good observation, and it's something I probably need to watch in my delivery. I've been obviously around Jefferson Healthcare, and it's important to my family, and I feel that I've got a deeply vested interest in the health. I also am running for the position to be on the board, and I very much see myself acting in that role. Not yet, but to come. And so, yeah, your point is well taken. I don't want to give the appearance of coziness because that's not there. I could say that I've got I know the executive team. I don't have a deep relationship with them. My wife's experience and relationship is not my own. And she's also been gone for 5 years and chose to make a career decision to go somewhere else. So I think it's a keen observation. I think it's a good point. I think it's something that I need to be mindful of, and I appreciate you raising it today.
Is there another different kind of question?
So he's not going to answer this.
I'm happy to address the second one just for a second.
Go ahead.
What my question was is not assuming that. My question was why Matt continues to address the 5 and 7 member board when not in the beginning, but now where the board has come out in the leader with an editorial addressing it, and at the last 2 board meetings has addressed it. I'm approaching this as a public, or not as a member of the public. My information is limited to what everybody else's is here. But I do attend the board meetings, and I read the leader, and I read everything that comes out. And so that's what my question was around, is why the messaging's continued when it appears from my perspective that the board has addressed this issue head on multiple times. That's where I was getting at. I don't know what happened at the board level. I don't know what Matt was a participant in or not, and I don't want to make any assumptions there. So I just want to clarify from my perspective around my question.
Okay, we're almost at an end here. Do you have something with that, Matt, that you can add quickly to that? We have one more question after this.
So, when I blew the whistle, it was based on what the information I was given, which was a document that said 7 and 5, and had no indication of any other decision-making process. fact that they've come out saying they had some backroom discussions where they modified it is like meaningless to me. I didn't have that information. I wasn't involved. What validity could those backroom discussions have had? They weren't, we didn't agree on it. We weren't told them. So anyways, that's, so thank you for your questions. I agree they were important.
Am I allowed to make one comment?
No. Bruce has a question. Bruce has a question.
Yeah, my question is it ever okay to disclose confidential information to the public?
Absolutely. If there is illegal action taken in executive session, your oath is to the Constitution. It is not to obey the executive session rules, regardless of whether wrongdoing occurs there. I was put in a position of either participate in what it seemed like a fraud, deceiving the public, and obey executive session rules, or break executive session rules, and I had to search my heart to see what was the right thing to do.
Steve, what's your answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's times that are appropriate, but I would want to, if I was given confidential information in executive session, I would want to make darn sure that I knew that the executive session was invalid. And then what I would probably do is go to, we have a legal the board has a legal resource that's available to them of attorneys and through the state, and they weigh in on matters like this. And I think that that would be the next logical step before going forward, would be to determine whether it was appropriate to bring forward that confidential information, and how what the implications of doing so from an executive session, because executive session is still executive session.
But attorneys do disagree on what crosses the line.
They do, but that's where I think the information you're going to get from the state, and I forget the acronym, it's like MCRS. MRSC. Yeah, thank you. You know, they work with the state and are probably some of the best attorneys in tune with the issues, and it's probably more appropriate to go there than to an outside attorney.
Okay. Thank you to the two of you for your time and for coming today. That's it. Yeah, we're
Then why did we start late?
So, no, we didn't start late. We have regular meetings.
For those people who bought raffle tickets, stick around. Who's the raffle master?
Good evening and welcome to tonight's League of Women Voters Candidates Forum. Tonight, we are featuring the two general election candidates for East Jefferson County Hospital District Commissioner, Position 3. They are Stu Kerber and Matt Reddy. My name is Shelley Reese-Randall. I'm a member of the Jefferson County League of Women Voters, and it's my pleasure to be your moderator tonight. This is a 60-minute live, online, and on-the-air forum through our media partner, KPTZ 91.9 FM. And joining me are the two candidates for the Position 3 Commissioner seat, incumbent Matt Reddy and challenger Stu Kerber. Now, before we dive into the questions that have been submitted, a little bit about this position. And this is from the voter website run by the National League of Women Voters Education Fund, which you may visit, vote411.org. So in our state, public hospital district commissioners are responsible for the policies and quality of care provided at public hospitals. The commission sets the general policies of the district, which are implemented by the hired professional district administrator and hospital medical staff and personnel. The commissioners sit for a 6-year term and do not receive a salary, but get reimbursements for their time in meetings and health insurance. All voters in a public hospital district vote for all seats. So here in Jefferson County, Jefferson Healthcare is our public hospital. Mike Glenn is our hired administrator, and there are 5 total members of our hospital commission. I wanted to just share those names so that you can put this in context. The current sitting commissioners are Mari Dressler, Case Kolf, and Bruce McComas. So there are 2 positions open this cycle. Longtime Commissioner Jill Rienstra Bueller is stepping down, so position 5 will be on your ballot. But Patty Roden, I hope I pronounced that right, is running unopposed, so we do not have her in a forum. Again, tonight I am joined by the 2 candidates running for position 3, Stu Kerber and Matt Reddy. And thank you both for being with us tonight. All right then. This forum, just to give you some background of where we're at, it's a collaboration of the League of Women Voters, Jefferson County, and KPTZ, 91.9, Port Townsend's community radio. We're excited to report that a video recording of this forum will be available in a few days on the League's website and on our YouTube channel. So go follow us there. Those of you who are listening live on the radio who would like to watch the candidates in action, you can find the Zoom link to join and see the pictures on our website. And that is lwvwa.org for League of Women Voters Washington.org/Jefferson. And for those of you on the Zoom, if you have any technical difficulties, you can tune into the audio at 91.9 FM or streaming on kptz.org. Voting is absolutely the cornerstone of our democracy, and we appreciate the time that you are taking to listen tonight. If you are interested in closed captioning and you're on the Zoom, you will see a button or box at the lower part of your screen with the letters CC on it, and you can click to see the captions that Zoom generates live. No guarantees as to their absolute accuracy, though. So without further ado, we want to get into questions for our candidates tonight, because this is really a chance for voters to get to know them. Over the past month, the local league has solicited and received many thoughtful questions from our community. So the questions you hear tonight are your questions. We thank everyone who took the time to submit them. We have done some checking of the questions against the job responsibility to make sure we're asking questions that do relate to the job. And in the cases where multiple people submitted similar questions, we have done our best to combine them in a way that allows us to cover as many questions as we can on a wide range of topics. We'll try to get through as many of them as we can this evening. Please note that we are unable to take live questions from the audience during this forum. And the candidates did not receive these questions in advance. So they are also answering on the spot live. Before we began this forum, we made sure all candidates were able to see our 2-minute timer, and we'd now like to put that to use. So each candidate will give a 2-minute opening statement, and after that, we will move to the question period. And at the end of the forum, each candidate will give a 2-minute closing statement. We drew names to see who will go first, and candidate Ready was drawn. So candidate Ready, you will go first with your opening statement. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, 12 years ago, I ran for hospital commissioner to fight for healthcare access for all. And as commissioner, I've kept my focus on our mission, which is the health of our community. I've advocated for the district to learn about and help push for universal healthcare, both creative regional solutions and the ultimate solution of a federal single payer system. I've strived to listen and learn from both patients and employees about their experiences. I've pushed the district to maintain the most generous charity care policy in the state, which I'm very proud of. And of course, I've been a staunch advocate for transparency. Today, Jefferson Healthcare board meetings are audio recorded only because I have fought for that level of transparency so that the public and commissioners can use the truth of our words as a foundation to build on. I blew the whistle on the secret negotiations with Olympic Medical Center to form a private nonprofit corporation called the Peninsula Health Alliance, a plan illegally concealed from the public under the real estate exemption of the Open Public Meetings Act, and unfortunately illegally approved by the other commissioners in a secret straw poll outside a public meeting. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office investigated this and found the board likely violated the law and that the evidence leans towards unauthorized board actions and suppression of transparency. This secret plan should never have been hidden from you. This is not how a public institution should operate. The difference between myself and the other commissioners is not our values as they relate to high quality healthcare or sound financial management. The difference is in our attitude towards the transparency and democratic oversight of a public institution. It's about the principle that a public hospital is not a private corporation. The people, not lawyers or CEOs, decide what happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we will hear an opening statement from candidate Kerber.
Hi, my name's Stu Kerber, and I'm really excited to be running for hospital commissioner. I care deeply about our community, and as a father here, raising 2 young boys along with my wife in Port Ludlow, I'm deeply invested in our community's future. And through having kids and 3 generations of family that live around me, I've really come to appreciate how critical our hospital is, our hospital district, both for our health and as well as our access to care. With my kids both in school now, I have additional capacity to get more involved and truly be of service. And I have a skill set that I believe really complements the existing skills of board members. My professional background is in finance, commercial banking, and solving organizational challenges. But ultimately, I've been successful professionally because I build relationships and I solve problems. My goals, if elected, are to ensure Jefferson Healthcare remains financially sound, but also secular and independent. I want to continue to solve barriers of access for care in our community. And I want to ensure that Jefferson Healthcare remains the best place to practice medicine in the region, because we're going to need it to ensure that we can hire and recruit the talent we need and retain the talent that we have. Lastly, I'm prioritizing increasing both transparency and professionalism at the board. I believe that the coming decade for healthcare is going to look very different than the previous decade. And I'm really excited to be involved in what I can see as the opportunity to truly level up the board and the board's performance and ensure that our hospital remains an anchor of our community while driving care and access for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. So we'll turn to the questions here and alternate who answers first. So we'll have candidate Kerber answer this first question first. I'm going to ask you both just to elaborate a bit more on your agenda for getting elected, for sitting on the 5-member commission, of course, where you are only 1 voice in 5. And you each shared a little bit about why you are running in your opening statements. Thanks so much. But I think I'd like to have you explore a bit more about that and take 2 more minutes to just tell us a bit more about what you would hope to accomplish in a 6-year term starting in 2026 if elected. So candidate Kerber, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I hope to accomplish and what I'm running on, so I talked about my goals and what do I want to achieve. And obviously the first is to have Jefferson Healthcare remain financially sound and secular and independent. I believe that that financial strength is critical not only for ensuring our hospital is here in the future, but to allow the risk that drives creativity and access to care in our community. I want to continue to solve barriers to access, and not just for our whole community, but also for focused on our young families, which provide the vibrancy for our community, and our aging adults, which deserve the ability to age in place with grace and to enjoy the benefits of what they've built in our community. I stated that I want Jefferson Healthcare to remain the best place to practice medicine in the region. And I talked a little bit about that, but we need to ensure that because hiring here is a challenge. We're never going to be able to pay the top wage. And so we need to culturally have an environment that is attractive to caregivers because without them, we don't have access to care. And lastly, I talked about prioritizing transparency and professionalism at the board. I believe that the board is, it has the opportunity to, I talked about it leveling up. I also believe that high-performing organizations require high-performing boards and that leadership starts at the top. I also believe that healthy boards have disagreement, but that disagreement needs to be handled and resolved in a professional manner. And it doesn't drag the staff, the hospital, or the hospital district. It doesn't talk about them disparagingly out in public. So if I can accomplish those things in my term, I would say that I would have been successful as my role in a commissioner.
Thank you. Candidate Reddy.
Yeah, I mean, my goal is to have a board that has integrity and leads with open, honest, collaborative dialogue that does its primary job is to oversee the CEO. That's the one employee that we are directly responsible for overseeing and managing. So it's our job to do that in a responsible, professional way. One of the things I've tried to push the board to do is to do a 360 evaluation of the CEO each year, which is a standard business practice. It's a best practice. And the board and the CEO have resisted that. It's where you gather information and feedback from people, peers surrounding the CEO, and you ask what they're doing well and what their challenges are. And that's the type of information that can give the board really good feedback to help, improve management. As always, I'm an advocate for single payer healthcare, and I think hospital districts and hospital commissioners can work harder to advocate for that. And we have the Association of Public Hospital Districts and the Washington State Hospital Association, which are the primary means that hospital commissioners and districts network. But unfortunately, those organizations don't really allow for hospital commissioners to suggest advocacy priorities. And so when I've gone to those organizations and tried to get them to talk about single payer healthcare and how we can advocate for it, there's been resistance. So I think there's more that can be done amongst commissioners to advocate in that way and to organize, and maybe to create an organization in which hospital commissioners are empowered to come up with our advocacy priorities so that we can help this country move healthcare in the direction it needs to go.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we're going to dive into some substantive issues, but let's continue down this track of just having you tell the voters a bit more about your leadership experience and style. So candidate Reddy will rotate and you'll go first. Just tell us a little bit more about your experience, both on and off of the commission, since you're an incumbent, and kind of what voters might expect as your leadership style.
Well, I mean, my main style is to listen. I'm a group facilitator, and I was an organizer during the Occupy Wall Street movement, and I helped organize Occupy Port Townsend, where I facilitated massive groups of very diverse groups. using consensus facilitation. I've been a volleyball coach. I was, which is a high school volleyball coach, which is a challenging endeavor in itself. When I worked at the hospital, I started in the IT department. I worked there for some 8 years, and then I was, for a brief time, the director of the IT department, and which was very challenging. And I'm incredibly impressed with the work directors do to manage employees. And so then in the last 11 years, I've been a commissioner, which has been an incredibly eye-opening experience. And I have learned so much about how public hospital districts fit into the picture, how public hospital commissioners interface with elected with legislators, and of course the intricacies of how a board works. So yeah, I mean, my style is to listen and to ask questions, and to not be afraid to ask questions if I don't understand something, and to strive to be honest and clear about what I think we should do, and to listen to alternate ideas. Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Candidate Kerber, your leadership experience and style.
Yeah, I would say, so as far as my leadership style, I would say it's one of collaboration and of building relationships. My experience is largely from my professional world, and I have a strong background in finance, sure, but ultimately what I do and what I've done well is that I build relationships and I connect people. And as we face challenging times, that is one of the ways that we solve problems, is through having really strong relationships and then applying creativity. I would say that I also listen, but I listen to find ways to solve problems, and to do so in a way that benefits all stakeholders that are there. And I think that that's a unique characteristic and something that a strong attribute of my leadership style. I also believe that I've done a lot of work leading teams professionally, and when you lead a team, I like to lead a team from the front. I don't think that you can ask other people to do the work that you are unwilling to do. But essentially, I would say it's my leadership style is collaborative. It's building relationships. It's listening for ways to solve problems, and it's really leading by being out in front and leading through example.
Thank you. Yeah, it's sometimes difficult to be so self-aware, but I appreciate both of you tackling that. I'd like to ask our timer for a 1-minute timer. And before we dive into the community questions, I'd like for you each to just take a minute, and starting with candidate Kerber, tell us, as you have been campaigning and out with your meet and greets and doorbelling, or people coming up to you in the food co-op, what sort of things are you hearing that our community feels are the most pressing issues facing our hospital district? So I'd really just like to kind of get a reflection as to what you're hearing from the community, and what you're willing to take forth as a commissioner. Candidate Kerber?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of concern over the changes in the financial landscape for hospitals, and what healthcare landscape looks like going forward, with decreasing reimbursements, increasing regulation, and increasing expenses. And I think that that's one that the hospital is well situated to navigate, but presents significant headwinds. I also think that one of the other themes that I've heard a lot is that people really want to see a increase in the performance of the board, and both through transparency, which in a way that the board can deliver information to the community in a digestible manner, and really to help drive public engagement with the board. And I think that those are both critical areas for the board to focus on.
All right, thanks. And candidate Reddy, your response to what you're hearing from the community.
Yeah, well, I mean, the number one is concern about the big federal financial healthcare bill that is going to cut funding for public hospitals and Medicaid and other services. So there's a lot of concern about that and a lot of questions of what creative solutions we can come up with to deal with that. There's definitely a big concern about staying secular and not becoming controlled by a religious organization. A lot of talk about the Peninsula Health Alliance situation, a lot of confusion about that, about what happened. So a lot of questions about that. Concern about being able to get into specialty services and how can we, increase access. And I get a lot of questions about my relationship with the other commissioners and the CEO. And so I've talked about that a lot. That's the things that have come up.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Well, with that groundwork, we have received questions from our submitters on all of those topics. I think we'll stay high level with the federal funding changes. And so let's see, candidate Ready will answer this one first. Just give us some high level thoughts on how our hospital district may be needing to handle a loss of revenue caused by reduced Medicaid payments and other federal funding changes. What do you know about that? And what are some thoughts you can share with the voters?
Yeah, we are going to, if nothing changes, if the law stays exactly the way it is, then we are immediately going to be impacted by losing probably at least $250,000 a year just from SNAP funding being cut. And then there's going to be thousands of people cut off of Medicaid in our county. And this is going to lead to potentially an additional $2 to $3 million of charity care and bad debt that the organization is going to have to provide, in addition to the $11 million of charity care and bad debt we already have. And it's going to complicate things. It's going to increase the number of difficult to discharge patients that we have. So it's a challenging situation. I'm hoping and hopeful that things can be corrected a little bit. That I'm hoping there can be changes before these big financial hits get us, and they're about a year out from now. There's also a rural health fund that was created that potentially we might